Okay, good morning, everybody. Going to be going over lesson number 10, conditionals. That is going to be all the way down here in module 4, I think that is. So lesson number 10. This stuff we did cover in Python, so I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it. Basically, a conditional is going to check the Boolean of some true or false option. So they're going to check whether it's true, whether it's false. If it's true, do this. If it's false, do that. Okay? In Java, we use the keyword if, followed by whatever that Boolean expression will be inside of open brackets. Okay? And then we follow it up by a single statement or block of statements. The single statement or block of statements are only executed if the condition is true. A block statement is enclosed by an open curly brace and a closed curly brace. So we have an example right here. I'm going to give it to you specifically in Eclipse. So we have the name of our class, our open and closed curly brace for the class, and then our open and closed curly brace for our main method here. And in here we have a variable that's the data type Boolean, and we called it isRaining. And we've assigned that value of that Boolean to be true. So Booleans can only have two values, true or false. Okay, we're assigning the value of isRaining to true. And then we say if isRaining, so that's asking if this variable is true, if it reports as true, so the value of that variable reports true, I want you to do this. And then I want you to do that. Okay? So right now the value of isRaining is true. So when I run this program, it is hopefully going to return take an umbrella. Okay, so it returns take an umbrella. Now it's still going to return drive carefully because the computer comes through and works from top to bottom. It gets to line 7 and says, okay, this is an if statement. I have to check if this is true. So it says, if this is true, do this. And then it does complete the condition. It completes the conditional statement. So then it just goes on to line 8 and it prints whatever's on line 8. So even if I change the value of my Boolean to false and I run it, I'm still going to get drive carefully because this is not a part of my conditional statement. This is just something that's extra. So whatever the value is determines whether or not the commands inside the if statement are carried out. Okay? Very, very simple. Breakdown of how that works. Okay? I explained it here. This explains the condition a little bit closer in the same way we've done that multiple times. I don't want to spend a lot of time on things we've covered already in the past. The else, now we can add an else statement, and the else keyword is going to give us something for the computer to do if the condition was not positive. If it was not true, what's supposed to happen? Rather than just nothing happening or moving on to the next line, in that if statement we can include an else, and that will give us a second option in the case of the conditional statement being false. So in this example here, I have Boolean is heads. Its value is true right now, and I say if is heads is true, do this. Else, do this. So when is heads is true, I'm going to get this statement. This string is going to print. When is heads is false, I'm going to get this statement. After conditional is going to print no matter what because it's occurring outside the conditional statement. So when I run this as true, it gives me let's go to the game and after conditional. When I change the value of is heads to false and run the same program again, it's going to give me the second string let's watch a movie and after conditional. Okay? That we've done in Python. Relatively simple. Let me know if there's questions. I can explain it. I want to move on because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Now, this one, if we look at this note, it says, an if will only execute one statement following it unless there's a block of statements enclosed inside of a pair of open and closed curly braces. Java doesn't care if you indent the code to show what you intend. So it's about the curly braces. So when you look at this statement right here, which I have in a class right now, if I look at this statement right now, what I want is if is cold is true, I want it to output wear a coat and wear gloves. Wear gloves. Wear gloves. I want it to output both. Right now, it only outputs one. Okay? And we want it to be able to outprint two of them. We don't care about this statement. This is just an after conditional statement. So in order to make this work, we have to put the two statements inside open and closed curly braces. Okay, so now those two statements are in there, and sorry, let me go back a step. I missed something that was important. Okay, I had the value of the variable as false. So the only thing that carries out in an if statement is the statement directly following the if statement. So it doesn't matter if it's down a line down here. I put mine down here because it's just cleaner to look at, but it wouldn't matter if it was up here either. The statement immediately following the if is the only thing that's going to carry out in the event that the condition is deemed true. Okay, so before it returned wear gloves because it was false. So because it was false, it didn't carry out this one. It skipped it and carried out that one. So if we run play, it's going to say wear a coat, wear gloves, buy. But we only want it to say these two if it's true. When it's false, it's still returning wear gloves. And that's where those curly braces come into play. So we put a curly brace here. We put a closed curly brace there. And now both of these commands are included within the if statement. So when I change the value to true and run my code, I get both statements as well as the after conditional statement. All right, when I change the value of that variable to false, I only get the after conditional because these are now grouped together as a part of the if statement. Okay, that's the idea behind the curly braces and this section. All right, 3 or more options. Again, there's a really cool graphic organizer thing for you to look at here. If you have 3 or more possibilities, you can add an else if to your if statement. Okay, so if you have if I'm hungry, my mom will make me food, else if my dad will make me food, else if I will make myself food, else I will be hungry. Okay, that's an example of the else if and how it works. In Python, I believe it was just elif, E-L-I-F, and that's how we ran our Python else ifs. In Java, you can see here that we actually type out else space if. And I have this one set up right here. So the goal for this one is for you, if you go through this lesson on your own, is to get all 3 of these statements. So get this one to print, get this one to print, and get this one to print. The after conditional should print every time anyway, but as a part of understanding how this works, we want to get them to all print. So we have a variable called x, its value is 2, and we have if x is less than 0, print x is negative. Else if x is equal to 0, print out x is 0, else print x is positive. Okay, so right now, x is not less than 0, so this one is not going to carry. X is not equal to 0, so this one is not going to output. X is anything else is going to print this one, and the only other option would be for it to be a positive number. So when we run this, we have it display x is positive. In order to get it to print the second one, we change the value of x to 0 and it prints out x is 0. And to get it to print the last one, we say -1, and it prints x is negative. Okay? And you can have else if, else if, else if, else if, else if for a bunch of different options. Now, there is a different way to do that. I'm not going to say if it's better or worse, but using switch and breaks, you can do the same thing. We will do a lesson further on in the modules on switch and breaks. And if you want to go look at it right now, you can look at it here. But for now, I just want you to understand how to use else if. Okay, complex conditionals. And the biggest thing here we're talking about is the use of and or the use of or. Okay, using two, I can't remember what those are called. Ampersands? Okay, I think that's what they're called. They look like a guy dragging himself, or a person dragging himself on the floor with his hands, sitting on his butt. That's what they look like. But that in Java stands for and. Okay, and when you look at and, I'm going to slide down here to this chart. Okay, it's also called a truth table. So we have two values, P and Q, and we say the value of P is true, the value of Q is true, P and Q together, that statement would be true. Okay, if one's false, they're both false. Okay, it doesn't matter. And means everything. It's all encompassing. All right? So the only time that these come back true is if both P and Q are true. So if we say P and Q, P has to be true, Q has to be true, and then the overall conditional statement is true. If even one of them is false, the overall statement is false. This one has a question mark, but it's false. Okay? Because as soon as Q is false, it's automatically false. And obviously, if both are false, it's false. So let's come back up here to this doing homework thing. So if you want to go, so you want to go out, your parents say you have to clean your room and do your homework. So you have to do both of them. Your parents didn't say to you, clean your room or do your homework. So you're not getting to pick or choose. You have to do both of them in order to go out. And that's what this class is doing right here. It's saying, if you've cleaned your room and you've done your homework, you can go out. If either one of these statements is false, no, you can't go out. So right now, let's say you can go out, so you've done both. So the value for clean room variable and the value for did homework variable are both true. When I run it, it says, sure, you can go out. But if you cleaned your room, but you didn't do your homework, it's irrelevant that you cleaned your room because you already have a false in one of the two options. Because it's an and ands are all-encompassing, it gives us the else because this statement is now returning false. Therefore, you can't go out. Okay, that's the idea behind complex conditionals and using and. Now, the other option is using or. And or is two straight up and down lines. Now, I believe, for me, right above the enter button on your keyboard for PCs, the right between the enter and the backspace, there's a slash and a straight line. So the shift and that button is what gives you this straight line. Both of those are what equals the word or. Now, or is completely different than and. It's the opposite, really. Okay? So when you're using or in a complex conditional, either one of these statements can be true, and it makes the overall statement true. All right? So your parents say to you, you can go out if you can walk to wherever you're going, or I don't need the car. So either one of those, if either one of those statements is true, you can go out. So if we say, yeah, the place that I'm going to is close enough for me to walk, so I say true. Because I'm using an or here, this statement is true. Therefore, the entire statement automatically is true. Because it doesn't matter which one. As soon as one of them is true, the entire statement is true. So when I run that one, it says you can go out. If I switch this and I say, no, the place I'm going to is not close enough for me to walk, but my parents don't need the car, so I can use it. So now this one's true, but that one's false. It doesn't matter. Because this one is returning true, the entire statement is now true. Okay, so it still returns you can go out. The only time it returns the false option is when neither one is true. So both of them are false. Now you can't go out. And we have a truth table for that one as well. So P and Q are here. We're asking P or Q. If they're both true, the overall statement's true. If one is false but the second is true, then the statement is true, regardless of which one is true. The only time a statement is false in an OR is if all components are false. And that's what this truth statement is here. Okay? It's important to understand that. Now, we have to get into DeMorgans Law, which is really mathy, and I'm not going to get into the super detailed explanation of it. The important thing to understand with DeMorgans Law and short circuit is that if you use an OR, as soon as it determines one truth, it automatically returns true. It's not even going to look at your other options. So if you need your program to look at multiple options, you have to remember that the computer is not going to look at them all as soon as it finds one positive. When it finds one positive, it's going to say, nope, I'm good. I'm not looking at the rest. And it's going to return the entire statement as positive. And on the other side, when you're using an AND, as soon as it finds one negative, the entire statement is negative. So you could have 15 conditions in there, and all of them could be true except for one. The first one is true. Sorry, you could have 15 conditions. All of them are true, but the first one is false. The computer's going to read the first one. It's going to see the false. Because it's all ands, it's not going to look at any of the other ones. It's going to immediately return a false reading for that condition. Okay, so it doesn't matter. That's the idea behind DeMorgans Law. And I have an example for you here. And this is where I end up getting relatively confused because we start using a not statement. But we have two variables, int x and int y. And we say value of x is 2, the value of y is 3. And then here's our statement. Okay? Does this statement return true or false? Well, right now, x is less than 3. True. Or y is less than 5. Okay? Well, it doesn't matter what y is because x has already returned true. X is already less than 3, so this statement returns true. Now, if we say this one, this statement here is going to, even though x is less than 3 is false, y is greater than 5. Okay? That one's also false. So this whole statement is false. Now, this is where it gets confusing. Okay? So if I turn those back to 3 and 2, now I say putting an exclamation point means not. Then I kind of touched on this at one point earlier. So now if I'm looking at this as is, and that this is the same conditional from the lesson, except for I need to change y to 2. This is where I ended up getting very confused, and I still get confused by this. You're trying to determine whether or not this entire statement is true. You have this not in here. So if you're trying to figure out, is this not true or is this is true? Here's what I was taught by the person who first showed me Java. Eliminate the not to help you figure it out. First, determine if the statement is true by itself. Okay? So x is less than 3. X equals 2. Okay? So this one is true. Or y is greater than 2. This one is true. Okay? So both of these in here are true. So if you took this not out, this statement would return true. All right? But because we have the not there, we have to go to the opposite of what the statement actually returns. It returns true right now, but because we're saying not true, we have to say that it's not. Okay? So when we run it, we get a false. even though both of these statements are in fact true, we're still going to get a false in there. All right? And if we start messing with these and changing them around, always determine first if the statement is true without the not, and then reverse whatever outcome you come to. That helps you come up with dealing with these not statements, especially when we start going into nested loops and all of that. Okay? That's the end of lesson 11. Lesson 10. I went through it relatively quickly, but there isn't a ton new there. We've kind of touched on all of it with Python. But from here, you should be starting to work into the lessons related to conditional statements. Okay, and I think there's 3 of them. There's 3. Okay, so we're going assignment 20, 21, and 22. I'll go over those ones individually. Let me know if there's questions. And